Hello, my name's Rachel Ullmann, and I am the Executive Director of the Given Institute. And I'm so happy to be here with you today and to specifically talk about women and how women can discover their gifts to put them at the service of the church and the world. I want to tell you a little bit about myself growing up. I'm a Baltimore girl, born and raised, and still live here in Baltimore. I am very grateful that I was raised in a Catholic household by wonderful parents who not only took me to Mass in the morning on Sundays, but we also attended prayer meetings in the afternoons on Sundays. So I got to experience not only the liturgy and the beauty and the truth of our Catholic faith, but I also got to experience a really tight-knit lay community of leaders, of men and women who committed to being in a community and a relationship with one another in terms of prayer and support and constant encouragement. So I had a really unique and special childhood, and I wanted to share a scripture verse with you that really meant something to me as a little girl growing up. And it's Psalm 37:4, and it says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." So even as a little girl, I read this scripture and it immediately jumped off the pages at me. It said something to me. And the beautiful part now as an adult, when I look back on the truth of those words and what they meant to me, is that I wanted the desires of my heart to be heard by the Lord, to be acknowledged by the Lord. I wanted them to be noticed, right? And all women want to be noticed. I think you can say that about any woman, right? We love it when we are noticed, but to be noticed by an unconditional lover, by God, right? And not just to be noticed, but for our desires to be granted. But the interesting thing is there's somewhat of a conditional piece, right? And the conditional piece is delight yourself in the Lord first, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So what that means to me and how I took that even as a little girl to today is that you need to be close with the Lord and follow his precepts to remain true to the gospel and the teachings of the church. Delight yourself in him, not in worldly things, right? Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. So I want to share that with you because I truly believe this, because I am a living witness in my own way of how the Lord has seen my desires, my wants, my needs, and has granted them. But it has been a lifelong journey of being in relationship with him and following his precepts. So I want to share another little story with you. When I was a teenager, and I think we all remember, sometimes fondly, sometimes not, our teenage years. But when I was 16 years old, I had a turning point in my life, a real conversion moment, a real moment when the Lord spoke to me. And I went on a leadership retreat at Franciscan University of Steubenville, and I was in the Sacrament of Confession with Father Dave Pavanka, now president of Franciscan. So Father Dave heard my confession. And then after confession ended, he laid his hands on my head for absolution. And then he popped his head up and he said, "Rachel, I have a vision for you." I said, "A vision? What does that mean, Father?" And he said, "Rachel, when I was praying over you, saying the words of absolution, I saw something. I saw you, and I saw you hiding behind a rose bush, and that the Lord was asking you to step out from behind the rose bush and to be a big, bright rose on the front of the bush." And that was it. And it floored me. You know, I'm a teenager, I'm young, right? 16, and I said, "Okay, thank you, Father," right? And I go out and I go into the chapel to say my penance, and I'm sitting before the Lord, and the words just sunk in. They sunk in because, if you knew me when I was a teen, even though I was at a leadership retreat, I was not a leader at the time. I had spent most of my middle school years, your coming of age years, early high school as a very nervous and insecure young woman. I did not believe in my dignity and worth. I did not value it. I did not see it. And to hear those words and to be asked, and I felt directly from the Lord, to step out and to be a leader was quite a challenge. It wasn't something I embraced immediately. I was terrified, downright terrified. And the thing about me, though, is being raised by wonderful parents and understanding respect and authority, I said, well, I can't not listen to God. I have to answer this call that I felt was from the Lord, right? And I completely changed my life in that week and in that summer. I chose to take risks. I chose to accept and even seek after leadership opportunities that were completely out of my comfort zone prior to that moment. So an amazing, amazing commission, an amazing moment where the Lord called me to discover my gift and to discover the gift that only I can give. And that was just the beginning. So I want to also just talk about women in general. I don't want to just tell my story. I want to talk about all women and the call of women to discover their gifts and then to put them at the service of the church and the world. We're in a really amazing time right now, and I truly am grateful that I was born in the 20th century and now live in the 21st century, that this really is an unprecedented time for women to take leadership roles and to be at the helm for change and to be at the forefront for serving others, the poor, the vulnerable, those who are weak, those who are voiceless. And there's no one better than a woman to do that. And I want to share just a little bit of history, a little bit of background of amazing Catholic Church leaders who have always advocated for the dignity of women. It's amazing because I'm sure you've heard that the haters out there, those who do not know the depth and the teachings of the church, often say that the church is anti-woman. I'm sure you've heard that before, right? But that's not true. And I'm going to share a few quotes with you. So back in 1953, Venerable Fulton Sheen, a TV radio superstar, one of the very first amazing Catholic leaders to embrace the new evangelization, which had not been termed or coined yet, but he took to the airwaves, he took to the television sets to bring the gospel and to bring the truth. And I want to quote him from one of his episodes in 1953. The entire episode was about women and the power of women and their dignity. And he ended it by saying, "These are the women that do not fail, and we salute them, we toast them. The women who were closest to the cross on Good Friday and first at the tomb on Easter morning." What is he referencing? He's referencing the Gospels. He's referencing the life of Christ and the role of women in the life of Christ, first at the tomb on Easter morning, sitting at the foot of the cross on Good Friday. If we think that women have not had an equal place or have had a valued and dignified place in the life of the church, go read the Gospels. It's pretty incredible to think about the way that Jesus respected and treated women and upheld them, most importantly, his Blessed Mother. Also, I can't forget to mention Pope St. John Paul II. And the amazing thing is May 18th is the anniversary of what would have been his 100th birthday here on this earth. And we know him to be a saint in the heavenly courts. The amazing thing about JP2, and I think why I love him so much and many of my peers in my generation love him so much, is that he was an advocate and a champion for the dignity and vocation of women. We know in 1988, he wrote Mulieris Dignitatem. which spoke so incredibly eloquently about the truth of women and their role. And then I think one of my personal favorites is his 1995 letter to women, where he lists in there all of the various vocations, states in life, ways that women can give of themselves to others, and all of equal value. And that is something that I'm not sure we all have yet embraced and accepted yet, but it is so true. He addresses women in religious life. He addresses single women. He addresses mothers. He addresses women in the workplace. I can go on and on, okay? Any state in life, any vocation that a woman is called to, he gives it credence, he gives it dignity, and he shows that they are equal and important and valued in the life of the church and the world. So if you have some time, I highly recommend that you read both of those documents. But the beautiful thing about where we are now in 2020, in an unprecedented time, I've been quarantined in my house for over 50 days, and I know you all have been too. And so we are now facing new ways where we have to express our faith, live out our faith, relate with one another, and many of that is through these virtual events and these conferences and these opportunities where we can continue to grow and continue to develop our relationship with the Lord and also be in communion with other Catholics around the country and around the world. But I specifically want to talk today about women and how they can discover their gifts and use them to serve others. So we see the way that you can discover your gifts as 3 steps, 3 important tools, 3 important channels to be able to find that gift that only you can give. And the first step is to receive the gift that you are, to know that you were created as a woman for a purpose. That was not a mistake. That you as a woman have dignity and value, that your femininity is a gift, your fertility is a gift, your maternity, spiritual or physical, is a gift. That all of those aspects were completely designed by God, and they are meant for you to be used. The second step is to realize the gifts you have been given. So to go through a time of discernment, a process of asking God to reveal to you what are your specific gifts. And I told you my story about when I was 16 and the Lord literally spoke through a priest to me to say, you are meant to be a leader. I wasn't expecting that, okay? So your gifts that you realize that the Lord reveals to you may sometimes be unexpected in terms of you might have had blinders on. You might not have been looking or refused to see those gifts. However, although it was unexpected in the moment, now that as I have grown into my calling, into my vocation, it all completely makes sense. Even my parents have said there was something about you when you were young. You were a little different. My parents one time said, she's either going to grow up to be a nun or a roller derby queen. Maybe this is somewhere in the middle. I don't know. But I've got a Bible in one hand or maybe a beer in the other. Okay? So this beautiful unfolding of who I was imprinted to be, who God made me to be, and then realizing that and letting it flourish. The third final step of discovering your gift is to respond with the gift that only you can give. So once you've received your dignity, once you've realized your gifts, then respond. Then take those gifts and put them at the service of the church and the world. Use them for others. And how can you do that? You do that through a community and a network of support, hopefully with other Catholic women who help to applaud you, to encourage you, and send you on your way to use your gifts for others. I just want to finish by sharing a couple inspirational heroines that have been important to me in my journey of receiving my gifts, realizing them, and responding with them. We all need some heroines, right? We all need someone to look up to, a role model, a leader, and someone that we can say, I want to be like her. Wow, she makes me really want to get up in the morning and tackle my challenges, to use my gifts. And I'm actually going to give you some examples from pop culture because you can look them up if you don't already know who they are. And the first one I want to share is the amazing superheroine character of Wonder Woman. And that movie was just released in 2017. So also if you think, well, there really aren't any good female characters or role models out there in today's culture, I beg to differ. I think there are some, and you sometimes have to search to find them. But in the movie Wonder Woman, there's this amazing scene where she's in a bunker in the middle of the war, and they're right at the bottom of this field in this plain called No Man's Land. There's a reason it's called No Man's Land, right? And she's talking with one of the soldiers, and the soldier says to her, you can't cross that. You can't go across that field, Diana. We have been here for months trying with all of our artillery, trying to get across and save the town on the other side, and it just can't be done. And she had realized there were innocent women and children and families that were stuck in that town that she felt that she needed to save. And so she responds to him saying, he says, we can't save everyone in this war. It's not what we came here to do. And then you see this moment where she lets down her hair, she takes off her cape, she has her armor, her Wonder Woman gear on, and she says, no, but it's what I'm going to do. And she climbs up the ladder out of the bunker, and what does she do? She races across that field, facing the enemy, taking all the fire from the enemy, and what happens is then the army is able to come up behind her and to charge across the field, and they're able to save the town. That scene is epic. You need to look it up. You need to watch it and see the whole movie. An amazing moment where a woman knows her purpose, she knows what she's called to do, and nothing will stop her. Another one I wanted to share is the movie A Quiet Place that came out in 2018. And Emily Blunt is the main female character in that movie. And you might remember that it's incredible that it's a moment where there's monsters that are constantly trying to kill her and her family. And you would think in that moment where you have to be silent, you can never speak, that the last thing they would do would be have another baby. But that's what they do, right? She and her husband conceive, and in a end of the world scenario, right? They are about to welcome a new life. And there's this moment where she's walking down the steps, and anytime you make a sound, the monsters come to you. And she steps on a nail. And in that moment, what does she do? She doesn't scream. She doesn't barely give out any sound because she's trying to protect her husband and protect her children. Just this moment of she takes all the suffering because she's trying to save her family. And then later on and giving birth. And it's just an incredible scene. And I loved that movie. I loved the beauty of showing the embracing of life in a time where no one understood that. Right? No one would think that would be the smart decision or the right decision, but her embracing her motherhood and him embracing his fatherhood was exactly what they needed for healing. It's exactly what they needed for their family and to be able to face the enemy. So I just wanted to share those awesome heroines that you can find in pop culture and to encourage you and to all the women out there that if you discover the gift that only you can give because of the gift that you are, that you truly will be able to change this world. You'll be able to change this world and this church to be a better place. God bless you.